Part 89. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 885. The illusion effect of consciousness. This is the jet lag effect caused by the gap in consciousness. Fan Duo smiled. My consciousness exceeds yours by too much, which leads to direct suppression and an illusion effect, making your reaction speed different. The perception of the flow of time has slowed down dozens of times. To put it simply, you are slower and I am faster. Is there still such an effect? Garen felt a little horrified. The gap in consciousness can actually suppress the sense of time flow. In this way, no matter how strong the reaction nerve is, it will eventually slow down after being slowed down so many times. More than one level. This is the effect that the consciousness gap will cause when the consciousness gap is above a complete level. Of course, the quality gap of consciousness itself will also have an impact. So at the high-end stage, the consciousness gap will allow top pilots to fight 1 against 100, that is, this principle. In the eyes of ordinary people without consciousness, it may even be suppressed to the point of slowing down hundreds of times. Of course, this suppression cannot last long. It is a common skill in resonance burst skills. It can only be used after the inheritance level, and generally lasts for half a month. Minutes are considered powerful, Fan Duo explained. Half a minute doesn't take that long. Just 1 second of this kind of suppression can make up for almost all other advantages. No wonder Garen's mind flashed through various heroic legends about top pilots, most of which were based on the weak defeat the strong, and win by taking the enemy general's head in the midst of thousands of troops at the most critical moment. With this explosive resonance skill, even a pig can become a super pig. I heard that you are going out to the radiation belt with others to look for mecha materials, Fan Duo asked again. This old man's well-informed level is indeed amazing. Garen secretly thought that he had never mentioned this to anyone else, but the old man found out anyway. Yes. It's lambda alloy. Lambda alloy is not very good. At your stage, it is more suitable to use moondark alloy. It may be a little more expensive but has growth potential. Before you reach the inheritance level, it will not be used as the main body of the mecha. Poor. If you use lambda alloy, you will need to replace it and upgrade it when you reach the half-moon level, which is more troublesome, Fan Duo thought. I have some moondark alloy here, but the amount is not enough. I will get you some supplements later. It doesn't matter if you go out to the radiation belt. Now that your identity is not disclosed, you can still walk around casually. When it is announced later, you may not encounter some minor troubles, but once you encounter trouble, it will be real. It's a big deal to fight to the death. I understand, the greater the strength, the stronger the opponent will naturally be, Garen nodded. It's good that you understand. In the place where you are going, besides lambda alloy, there is another thing that you can get your hands on. Fan Duo took out a small piece of dark red metal from his pocket with his backhand. Blood silver. At your stage, it's just right to be used as an engine shell insulation layer. With this, many engine technologies in the future can be applied. But you have to remember that this thing expires very quickly, and there is no way to save it for an extended period. If you don't take it back for processing and shaping within 2 months, you will have to pick it up again. Where can I get it specifically? Garen carefully observed the appearance and characteristics of the blood silver. There is a garrison point over there. When you go there, tell me my name. One of our resident pilots from the Black Annihilation faction will immediately collect it and pass it to you. This thing is very precious. Remember not to let others see it. That point is also mine. The old man only has a few precious resources in his hands, Fan Duo warned carefully. Powerful engine technology and future growth are all related to manufacturing materials. Blood silver is a good thing that you will never go out of date in the future. Remember to make sure not to pass the shelf life after taking it off, otherwise it will be a huge waste. New. Garen nodded solemnly. Auroral black disk space, public radiation belt. In the evening, the sun slowly set in the dim red sky, and most of the outline was covered by heavy black clouds. Only a small half shed light and fell to the earth below. The black land has mountains and hills, and the peaks are mostly spire-shaped, with emerald green plants and grass sparsely scattered on them. Mountain peaks stand on the black ground, like big black trees with roots growing on the ground, and there are even branched branches growing out of them, with faint yellow lights scattered above them. Windows of different sizes were actually opened on these mountain peaks, and dim lights shone from inside. The peaks are hundreds of meters high. Occasionally, yellow and red lights can be seen on them. Some are only tens of meters high. At the top, you can also see defensive forts with gun barrels. On the ground between the peaks, there are sparsely scattered black and gray buildings, like building blocks randomly placed on the ground. They are of different sizes and not neat. On the edge of the building complex are patches of green farmland. Inside it is covered with lush green plants, and the breeze causes the green plants to ripple. On a cliff not far from this residential area, 4 tall black humanoid mechas slowly flew down and stood gently on the thick, moist black soil of the cliff. The big foot of a mecha casually moved and crushed a black scorpion with 2 tails to death. The 4 mechas were all inconspicuous, and their entire bodies were painted to look dilapidated. In some places, there were broken and protruding stub bless, revealing the old gray circuit lines inside. These are 4 complete mechas that are rarely seen in the radiation belt. Although they are dilapidated, they are still not owned by ordinary forces. If there was only one in an ordinary village of 100 people, it would even be considered a guardian angel. Buzz. In the sky, 3 huge mutated black flying rays flew slowly, casting huge black shadows. This huge creature looks like an electric eel with 2 thick, fan-shaped wings that fly forward in an up and down motion, with a long tail trailing behind it. The 3 mechas below looked up, their red eyes flashing with the glimmer of scanning analysis. The mutated giant ray looks like a kite from a distance. The scenery is nice. A low male voice came from a mecha. A moving kite. This guy is more than 10 meters tall. He was born with anti-gravity organs. He looks so violent that he is no longer human, another mecha joked. I'm not a human to begin with, another mecha interface said. Inside the machine, Garen took out a water bottle and drank heavily. It's so cold. Anda, how do we go now? According to the map, this should be Flying Ray City. We have to go through 3 locations to reach our destination, a woman asked in a deep voice inside the last mecha. This group of people is the team that came out to collect lambda alloy such as Enda and Garen. In addition to completing the collection task, this task team also needs to buy some cheap lambda alloy. The price difference between outside the territory and inside the territory is not ordinary. Big. The 2 people Enda had made an appointment with, a man and a woman, plus Galen, a total of 4 people, formed a temporary mission team. After quickly completing the departure procedures, Bien flew directly to the destination without stopping, but because the distance was too long, and the energy wind in the middle radiation belt was too strong, which put a great burden on the mecha's flight, and the energy furnace consumed a lot, so the 4 of them landed at the first supply point as planned, preparing to replenish energy blocks here. Avis, please scan for any surveillance points nearby and be alert in all directions. Enda began to assign tasks. No problem. Linda, underground environment monitoring depends on you. Give it to me. Garen, you and I are the strongest, focus on the air in the center, and then focus on supporting Avis. Is that okay? Ken. The group of people used pseudonyms when they went out, and Garen also resumed the names he was accustomed to using in previous worlds. The good-looking black plate standard mecha is disguised in such a tattered way. The makeup fee alone cost me 5,000 yuan. If I can't make it back this time, I will suffer a huge loss, Ives muttered. It flew up and moved slowly in one direction. Linda stayed put and pulled out a slender black metal needle from her lower waist. She pulled it with both hands and immediately stretched it to a length of more than 5 meters, then stabbed it hard into the ground. Tisk, the thin needle pierced into the ground, and a circle of subtle vibrations spread out. Spreading from the cliff along the surface to areas with soil and rocks, tiny poisonous insects were constantly forced to dig out of the soil and escape in all directions. It looks so densely packed that it's very unappetizing. Garin leaned against a stalagmite with his chest in his arms, watching quietly as several people prepared to set up camp. This time I came out with Enda. The other two, Linda and Ives, one is a young girl with long brown hair. She has an ordinary appearance and an average figure. There is nothing outstanding. Whether it is doing things or looking good, she is quite satisfactory and calm. The radiated consciousness fluctuates around level 4, but I don't know if it has any resonance. The other Ives looks like a bit of a coquettish man. He is in his late 20s, mid-20s, and likes to dress up all day long. He likes to use men's perfume and looks like a pretty boy. At first glance, he looked like a young man who couldn't bear hardships, but along the way, to his surprise, this guy didn't look spoiled and was very experienced in doing things. Very good at investigation. Along the way, the four of them stored a large amount of water and food, and arrived at the first supply point, Flying Ray City, within 6 days. This is the largest radiation city in the public radiation belt from the Black Disk domain. Garin looked at the small town below, which had no walls and even cultivated farmland. There were more or less trees on the surrounding tree-shaped peaks. The defensive muzzle seemed to be heavily guarded. That's true for the radiation residents in the radiation zone, Ander replied casually while fiddling with assembling an unknown instrument. The most famous thing about Flying Ray City is that it has guardian-like radiation mutant creatures as guards, those flying rays in the sky. As long as you don't attack them, they will not take the initiative to attack humans. This place has clean first-class water, first-class food and meat, good living environment, stable and safe defense facilities. Only elite radiation talents in the radiation belt are qualified to live here. I came here with another team last time. The prices here are very cheap. A little clean radiation-free water is the first-class water here. You can actually buy a beautiful girl with 1 liter. Although you are a person with radiation, but that figure and that look. Gee, I'm so addicted to my hands. Ives didn't know when he flew back silently. Is it interesting to wear radiation protection clothing? Anda glanced at him and said speechlessly. Actually, I can't help but want to take her back. You don't know, the girl's whole body only has a little fingernail-sized radiation mark on her butt. The rest of her body is completely no different from a normal person, Ives argued. I bet that the chief of the most beautiful green yarn club in the city is probably like that. You can only live the addiction of a top noble in the radiation belt, Anda said lightly. Isn't it the same for everyone who comes outside for the first time? Ives snorted. Garin listened to the two arguing, but his eyes had drifted to an unknown distance. A trace of extremely weak message waves slightly touched his consciousness. They were the message waves sent by Chiyu, but they were extremely weak because of the distance. Galen calmed down and carefully identified the fluctuating message code. It was a very commonly used rice code, a code that conveys messages through a simple rhythmic combination. He began to interpret it carefully. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 886. When we encounter danger, come quickly. Chiyu's message was not long, but the meaning was clear and concise. They were naturally referring to Clint and his brother Alan. When they were in danger, they obviously meant they encountered some trouble in the radiation belt. Garin rubbed his chin and thought. Let the quantum computer in the mecha calculate the specific length and distance of the information. If you run to the radiation belt without a radiation suit, it will be really troublesome for Bolan. What he is worried about is that if Bolan is really infected by radiation and becomes a radioactive person, even just a little bit, The radiation traces will never be received by any domain. There is no cure for radiation sickness. This is a fact recognized by all fields, without exception. Soon the computer calculated the distance. The information code distance is 235 kilometers, direction is 23 degrees northwest. Please note that the energy reserve of the Mecha energy furnace is insufficient and the energy block needs to be replaced immediately. Residual energy 4%. Go and replenish the energy blocks first, otherwise you will run out of energy after soaking for a few kilometers. Garen breathed out and quickly put on a sealed radiation suit. In fact, even if he didn't wear a radiation suit, there would be no radiation that could contaminate him, because as a peacock larva, he was already the largest source of radiation. Cold energy radiation is unstoppable and can even affect the mind, but as a superficial identity, you still have to be careful. In the inner cavity of the Mecha, he held a short cane in his hand. It was the Xian cane. With the cane, Garen was slowly pushed out of the cabin and formed a separate isolation compartment. Then the outer door of the Mecha slowly opened. Puff! A stream of white gas spurted out and filled the surrounding area. Garen slowly jumped forward in his radiation suit and landed lightly on the soil on the side of the cliff. Standing up, the surrounding environment has been cleaned up, and there will no longer be any dangerous creatures such as poisonous insects. 3 other people wearing radiation suits also walked out of the Mecha. They look like people in cotton-padded jackets wearing thick black clothes. The only difference compared to people wearing cotton-padded jackets in winter is that their heads are wearing transparent glass helmets similar to helmets. The helmets are completely transparent if you are not careful. Look, you can't tell they are wearing this thing at all, its concealment is very obvious. Then there is no exposed skin anywhere else on the body, everything is covered tightly. There are black leather gloves on the hands, and there is a black plate pattern on the back of the hand, like an eye. Anda walked to the front, overlooking the flying ray city below. I have already contacted the city owner. To replenish the energy blocks, one person needs to guard the camp. The radiation people will send someone to deliver them. You only need to pay 2 pockets of first-class water. The rest can go and have fun. Who among you? Are you willing to stay? Ives raised his hand proactively. You can only watch but not play anyway. I have to deal with it myself if I get angry. It's so annoying. I won't go. That's okay. The other 3 people, Anda, Linda, and Garen, climbed down the right side of the cliff together. There was a series of stairs at a 90-degree angle. They looked covered in moss, and they had obviously not been used once or twice. The 3 of them walked down the stone steps for a few minutes, and soon a stone gate sentry tower appeared in front of them, guarded by black men with guns on their backs. It's 3 adults. The black man saluted the 3 people with a snap. Their etiquette was very strange. He pressed his right hand on his forehead and bent down at a right angle of 90 degrees. The accent is just a little more flat than people in the region, without any retroflex. Anda nodded and walked inside with Linda and Garen. There are more and more man-made buildings on the mountain road behind, blue-painted fence railings, and radiation people passing by from time to time, carrying large backpacks, who don't know what they are out to collect. Garen looked into a person's backpack and found that it was full of plant roots and grass, which seemed to be some useful herbs. All the radioactive people who saw the 3 of them along the way, whether they were simply dressed or dressed in gorgeous clothes, all dispersed to the roadside in awe and waited for the 3 of them to pass by. Even a woman carrying a child on her back tightly covered her child's mouth. Even if the 1-year-old child cried hard, she would not let go, but the sound still came out. When Anda heard it, he frowned and looked at it. Take a look over. With a loud bang, the woman beat her child mercilessly and knocked her unconscious. She immediately knelt down on the ground with her child in her arms. She lowered her head and did not dare to say anything. She just kept kowtowing. This is the radiant man, and his tone was light, but there was a hint of contempt. Don't say that. Compared to the elites of the inner court like us, even the ordinary students of the outer court cannot afford to offend them. Our status here is more terrifying than that of the Emperor. Linda sighed. Obviously this was not her first time here. Where is the ruler here? Garen asked. A big fat man who is sitting around eating and waiting to die cannot get up at all. He weighs more than 400 kilograms, Enda said disdainfully. The rulers here follow the rules and must salute to show respect when they see us. However, these maggots have been in power for a long time, and of course they are not willing to do this in front of so many people, so they deliberately found an excuse to avoid our meeting, and let their subordinates handle the reception of us. Which is a matter of course. Generally, as long as they entertain people like us, they have nothing to worry about. People are the least valuable here. The most valuable thing here is clean food and drinking water. Everything else is not as good as this. Both. The three of them walked along and soon entered the field area of Feo City below. They built a large green field around the entire Feo City. What was planted in the land was not ordinary rice and wheat, but a strange plant. Below are green branches similar to rice, and above it is actually holding a fat and wriggling green maggot. The bug curls its body, hugs tightly to the top of each plant, and keeps swaying with the wind. Soon, a pair of strong, radioactive men came over and knelt down respectfully to the trio on the road between the fields. On behalf of the city lord, the temperate slaves welcomed the arrival of the three adults. Behind him were four people, all in their teens, 2 men and 2 women. The man was handsome and strong, and the woman was beautiful and pure. Minato was dressed beautifully and sexy, intentionally or unintentionally. Old rules, Enda said casually. Galen, you choose first. Which of the 2 girls behind you do you like? The ones coming out here should be the best ones in the city. Garen was speechless and glanced at the 2 girls behind the man's temperate slave. Although they were beautiful, he could only look and touch them in the radiation suit. What's the use? These people are chosen to be guides and bed warmers. We may have to rest here for one night and set off tomorrow, Enda explained simply. Then I want this. Garen casually pointed to a girl with long hair who looked more pure. The girl had the same black shawl hair as Dongfang, big black eyes, white skin, neat bangs on her forehead, and lips nice pink. She also had a curvy figure, and she was wearing a black tights that looked slightly like a swimsuit. It was so thin that it couldn't cover the sensitive parts of her body. Especially a pair of fair and long legs. Because of the way she was dressed, her lower body looked like she was wearing only black underwear. Even though the girl kept pulling the clothes on her upper body with her hands to cover the area between her legs, it still didn't help. The tight-fitting clothes made it impossible for her to pull off the excess parts that covered her body. When she heard that Garen chose her, a clear blush suddenly appeared on her face, and she lowered her head, which made people feel extremely pitiful. The other girl is a blonde girl, who is also very beautiful. There is no trace of radiation on her body, but she wears a slave collar around her neck, which stimulates the man's desire to conquer. The temperate slaves kneeling on the ground also breathed a sigh of relief. These 4 slaves heard that nobles came out of the territory and urgently found the radioactive people among the nearby people. They were all excellent human beings with an external radiation level of less than 10%. Although still pretty, but compared to the previous selection of goods, he was also deeply afraid that a few people would be dissatisfied. In addition, the number of people he brought was small, and he was even more frightened. He did not expect that this time adults are pretty easy to talk to. Then I want another one. Enda pointed to the other blonde girl. It was obvious that he was familiar with this process. Linda randomly clicked on a shy-looking young boy who was very handsome and looked like a girl. The last boy was a little disappointed and was led down by the temperate slave. We're in a hurry this time, and the goods you picked don't look very good, so I don't blame you. We'll only have one night's rest, and we'll leave tomorrow. Let's quickly arrange a place to rest, Enda ordered. The temperate slave bowed his head and responded repeatedly. Understand. The boys and girls following the three people behind Garin were a little shocked. You must know that the temperate slave, as the city lord's confidant, has always been domineering and arrogant in the city, but in front of these three people, he was just a little better than a dog. Entering Flying Ray City, Garin felt the true desolation, chaos, and decay of the radiation belt. There are black and white buildings, and the walls are made of old cement bricks. There are dark red blood stains in some places, and no one has cleaned them up. The streets were very lively, and there were radioactive people holding mutated dogs everywhere. There were huge men who were over 3 meters tall, and there were dwarfs who were as thin as children. Some had an extra arm on their backs, and some had an extra arm on their backs. His nose was rotten and his entire face was flat. There are all kinds of radiated people. Under the introduction of the temperate slave, these people all have body abnormalities caused by various mutations. Where the three of them passed by, all the radioactive men were forcefully pushed away by the soldiers, leaving a wide gap in the road. They quickly got into the arranged vehicles. They were the most worn-out obsolete models in the domain, but here, they were obviously the ultimate enjoyment. In the radiation belt, those who are qualified to consume energy blocks and enjoy life are the nobles among the nobles and the big shots among the big shots. Garin was put into a car, followed by the girl who was only 16 or 17 years old. The girl was obviously very nervous, but also very curious and extremely excited about the car she was riding in. "Were you born in the radiation belt?" Garin asked casually, looking at the crowds of people on the street outside the window. "Yes, sir." "What is your name?" "Call me a little bitch." An unpleasant name. Garin was speechless. There was nothing wrong with calling him this name. "My lord, in Feo City, only nobles have the right to choose their own names. For us ordinary civilians, if we want to survive, we have to be assigned names from above," the little bitch replied with a sad expression. "We are okay, but those meat people are even worse. She is indeed beautiful, but there are more beautiful fleshmen than her in Flying Ray City." What is a meat man? Garin became slightly curious. People are raised in captivity, and they are constantly mated in the circle, and the blood genes are constantly purified like dogs. The resulting offspring will remove the deformities of inbreeding, and then use hormones to promote their growth. If there are beautiful and good qualities, they will be used as when slaves are sent out. If they are not of good quality, they will be used as meat pigs, the little bitch explained in a low voice. Garin was also slightly shaken for a moment. This is no longer treating people as humans, but treating them as animals that are worse than livestock. "What are the rules in the radiation belt?" he suddenly asked confusedly. The little bitch blinked in confusion, unable to understand what he wanted to ask. Sighing, Garin said no more, leaned back on the leather seat, crossed his legs and rested quietly. As the vehicle drove along, Garin didn't look much at the streets of Flying Ray City where demons were dancing, and he didn't slowly open his eyes until he arrived at his residence. When I got off the car, I saw a huge white manor in front of me, surrounded by tall walls. When I entered the door, there was a large circular 4-story fountain. Scarlet water spewed out from the fountain and flowed down all around, like blood. Just as eye-catching. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 887. There were already many neatly dressed men and women waiting in the manor. Then there is the matter of arranging the room and choosing the entertainment style. The so-called entertainment style is an environment that meets any needs of the guests. For example, if you like food, you will be taken into a special environment created by a large number of high-end and low-radiation food delicacies. The house is made of chocolate, the bed is made of toffee, the plants in the garden are all sweet fruits, and the swimming pool it's all milk. If you like beauties, you will be taken to the same special environment. All the beautiful women around you are not wearing clothes. You can see tools used for pleasure everywhere, and you can grab a woman at any time and play with it at will. If you like to be gay, you can choose from all kinds of outstanding men, handsome, strong, cold, and all kinds of temptations in uniforms. In this manner, as long as you want it, except for luxurious first-class food, all your other enjoyment wishes can be satisfied at any time. Even if you are killing people, you will be arranged to have people take turns to kill you one by one, with different killing patterns. This is the Meat Man Villa, known as the Bliss Manor. Everyone here is a meat man. Garin walked at the end of the team and looked at the large number of cleanly dressed people in 2 rows welcoming him and others. There were men and women, old and young, but they all had one thing in common. That is, their eyes are dull and dull. Only a few of them barely have a little sense of autonomy, and the others are as stiff as robots. Yes, the little bitch replied in a low voice. She was obviously a little scared. She grabbed Garin's arm tightly, and her body was almost pressed against him. Everyone here has been implanted with chips, and there is no way to escape. Some of them only have the IQ of 7 or 8 years old, and some are quite smart. They were convicted and thrown in among free people. That's true. Garin shook his head, gaining a new understanding of the cruelty of the radiation belt. In the hall, the temperate slave-conscious self retreated, leaving only Andalinda and Galen standing in front of the stone pillar of choice in the hall. Here you can choose your favorite entertainment mode. If there is none, you can describe your requirements and input them through your consciousness. If the main program runs correctly and there are no conflicts, you can freely generate new entertainment areas. Anda introduced. I played here several times, and it's very good. It's a pity that the highest level radiation protection drugs are only available to the top people every year. Otherwise, if you go to the radiation suit and play here, it will be a real paradise-like experience. Anda was obviously much more relaxed, and he looked at Garin. This is your first time here, Garin. Have fun. No one can enter the area you choose here without your permission, so any dark thoughts and hobbies you have can be satisfied here, hee. Boring. Garin responded lightly and glanced at the choices above casually. Murder, beauties, handsome men, food, kennels, playgrounds, abuse. Various entertainment modes are so densely packed that they actually cover the entire side of the stone pillar in front of them. There are also pages for turning pages below. At a glance, there are at least hundreds of them. There are also category options. You have to choose one. This is Bliss Villa. If you don't choose entertainment, no one will think you like women. Anda came over and smiled sinisterly at Garin. This made Garin, who was about to choose the quiet mode, roll his eyes. With a move of his finger, he suddenly landed on another choice. He didn't even bother to look at it. Except for a few violent choices, there were a lot of other choices. He didn't understand the symbol substitution, so he pressed the symbol substitution mode at will. Let's go. Garin immediately saw the direction he needed to go shown on the stone pillar. Amidst Anda's sinister laughter and Linda's helpless eyes, he took the little bitch and strode into an automatically opened door on the left. Small door passage. Anda carefully selected an item on the stone pillar and entered a small door with his arms around the blonde girl. In the end, only Linda was left, but her eyes flickered, and she did not choose any option. Instead, she walked out of the hall, raised her watch outside the door to release the virtual keyboard, and briefly typed out a series of codes. She didn't know what they were. After encrypting the message and sending it, she returned to the stone pillar, selected the quiet option, and led the handsome boy into the small door. Flying Ray City Lord's Mansion. At the top of the tallest stone mountain tree in the city, there is a huge hollow hall inside the stone treetop. At the top of the black and empty space, there is a tall throne. On top of it lies a huge bald man with a body width of 78 meters and a height of 56 meters. Fat man. The fat man was covered in fat, and the layers of meat kept falling down due to gravity, and piled up on the layer of meat below, forming a folded structure similar to a 1,000-layer cake. From a distance, it looked like a huge lump of white fat meat. Mountain. The fat man's two triangular eyes kept blinking, and he was holding a half-meter-long black pipe in his mouth. Behind him were two beautiful and plump naked women, who were massaging his body and head. These are the elites from the inner court of Black Pan Academy who are coming this time. Remember to be careful and careful in all hospitality. The fat man looked at the temperate slave kneeling on the ground below and ordered lazily. My subordinates are entertaining the three adults with first-level standards. Please rest assured, City Lord. The temperate slave lowered his head and answered loudly. That's good. The City Lord nodded, but his chin was too fat to show any obvious nodding action. Please pay attention and see if you can get some technology from them about cultivating repair tanks. Our own repair tanks still lack many key technologies. If it can be completed, the poisonous army can be quickly formed. Also, don't let the other city lords find out that the three adults are here with us. Yes. The temperate slave was about to get up and leave, but suddenly moved the headset on his ear, and the report of his subordinates came from inside. He frowned slightly. One more thing, Lord City Lord. What's the matter? Tell me. City Lord Fei took a puff of his pipe and said calmly. One of the three adults this time wants to use our military power to go out and find a few people. The temperate slave paused. It's the new adult named Garen. It should be his first time. Come to the radiation belt. Oh. It is easiest for such a new master to get good things from him. Not bad, not bad, meet his requirements. Since we are looking for someone, let the most elite cheetah troops go over and follow his arrangements, the city lord said angrily. Wave your hands. Yes, I will go and convey the order right away, the temperate slave replied respectfully. Neither of them noticed that in the shadows at the edge of the hall, a small black insect was flashing its ferocious compound eyes, and its body was actually made entirely of cold machinery. The sound here spreads to a distant direction with an invisible fluctuation. Within the Black Pan territory, in a private manor in Black Pan City. Phila strode into the second floor of the manor with a calm expression, and saw a leisurely young man inside holding a remote control panel and watching a huge wall projection TV. A beautiful girl behind her was carefully fanning her. This slut obviously has an automatic ventilation system that is not turned on. Philadelphia cursed secretly. Where's eldest brother? He looked at the young man and asked in a low voice. I don't know why you look so unlucky, fifth brother, you look like a dead dog. The young man did not hide his ridicule. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't beat this guy, Phila felt like the veins on her forehead would burst. It was just an accident. His heart suddenly moved and he answered as lightly as possible. Accident. The young man looked no different from the ordinary gangsters on the street. He had short dyed yellow hair and a small bunch of white hair hanging from his forehead. It hung down from the left side and was braided into curly silk. He looked very proud of himself. A chic and suave look. The white casual clothes obviously did not match his dark skin. They were obviously luxurious clothes worth over 10,000 yuan, but he was dressed like an embarrassed country landowner. Yes, it was an accident. Fellow made an expression as if she didn't want to say more. Interesting. The young man raised his watch and checked it quickly. When he saw the process, he became more interested. Your boy was beaten so badly by a newcomer, he had an interested smile on his face. Interesting, really interesting. What does it have to do with you? I can handle it myself. I'm warning you, Ice Dragon, I will handle my own affairs myself. If you dare to meddle in your own business, don't blame me for not treating you as a brother, Phila said coldly. Lao Wu, this is your fault. The young man called Bing Long stood up and said, you are alone, and you only have 3 or 2 big cats and kittens. When you encounter trouble, you don't look to me as your elder brother. If you ask me to go out and tell others that my brother is being bullied and they don't come to me, will I lose face?" He patted his chest and said loudly. "Don't worry, I'll take care of this. I'll deal with that kid directly for you." "It's my own business," Phyla said without hesitation. Before she could finish her words, she was suddenly suppressed by a huge and heavy pressure. For a moment, her heart was so shaken that she couldn't even speak. "This guy's strength is getting stronger again." Ice Dragon put his hands on Phyla's shoulders with a smile on his face. "You and my brother, you are still saying these kind words." Suddenly his face turned cold for a moment. "Do you really want to make me lose face?" A trace of cold murderous intention radiated from his body, imprisoning Faye. "Pull. This madman." Phyla's heart felt cold and she no longer dared to provoke this guy, so she forced a smile. "Of course not. Not the best." Bing Long smiled again. "Big Brother's people have been quietly infiltrating recently. According to the plan, in just 2 months, we should be able to successfully obtain that information." "So fast?" Phyla's face changed slightly. "Get ready, 3 UN and 1 star or something. I have long wanted to have a good meeting." A deep murderous intention flashed in Bing Long's eyes. "Before that, it's an appetizer to deal with the little guy who bullied my brother." Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 888. Desolate blue and black grassland wilderness. Atop the vast expanse of black swamps and grasslands, a solitary small hotel stands in the middle. The small gray-white architectural house looks like a blockhouse, like a playhouse, with no safety at all. Clint was lying on a black and broken mecha, holding tools and pliers and a few oily screws in his mouth, and was repairing his driving body seriously. Tighten the third screw on the left again. Pay attention to the energy circuit on the side. If you accidentally knock it crookedly, you have to start over. Chiyu's voice of guidance continued to sound, instructing Clint to quickly solve some problems with the body. Amidst the jingling noise, Clint spit out what was in his mouth. "Uncle Chiyu, can this thing still be repaired? I've been working on it for several days and there's still no movement. I suffered too many injuries in the previous chase battle. There is nothing I can do about it. Just thank God for being able to repair it." "Just be content," Chiyu replied helplessly. "Fortunately, Xiaolun's unit is very complete. If it doesn't work, you just have to make do with it. The energy blocks in the energy furnace are not enough. You must find new energy blocks. This is not the city. You can find a lot of energy blocks everywhere. In the radiation belt, the most difficult thing is supplies, not only for humans but also for mechas." "Can't I just throw it into your space like before?" Clint asked doubtfully. "Of course not. If you encounter a pursuer, you will be doomed. Unlike ordinary pilots, your consciousness will grow very quickly in the crash course. But relatively speaking, without a mecha, your consciousness will not. You will be able to exert your power." Chiyu reminded. "You kid won't forget it, right?" "Of course I haven't forgotten it," Clint pouted. The sharp pain in his buttocks was still fresh in his memory. He didn't know what happened, but the horrific memories made him unable to bear to recall them. "Okay, hurry up," Chiyu urged. "Clint, it's time to eat." At this time, Burin's shout came from the hotel below. She walked out of the door wearing an apron tied casually with a piece of black cloth and shouted loudly. "Let's go, let's eat." Clint jumped off the mecha. The 9-cannon training method had a powerful transformation on his body, so much so that it was completely easy to jump directly from a height of several meters. After entering the hotel, in the small hall behind the main entrance, I saw 2 bowls of light yellow thick soup on the table that looked simple but smelled very fragrant. I didn't know what it was made of. The air was filled with the aroma of meat and a faint smell of grass. "It smells so good." Clint took a deep breath and saw that Burin had prepared the spoon, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. "I'm sorry, There's nothing left to eat? Only the last bit of canned food is left. I used the remaining water to make this Bolen said with a bad expression. It doesn't matter, how long can our diet last? Clint sat down, grabbed a spoon and scooped it into his mouth. 2 more days. Bolen lowered his head. Clint raised his head with a look of disbelief. Although the rat meat made into dried meat is stored in Uncle Chayu's space, we don't have enough water. And in the last incident, the filter system device of the mecha that we separated was also taken away. Yes, Burin replied with his head lowered. Looking for food in the radiation belt is a very troublesome thing, but it is easier than being hunted. Chiyu seemed to have expected it, and said calmly. It focused its main attention on Burin, who slowly sat down. Xiaolun. Ah. You secretly asked your brother about the exercise method for the lower half, and I have given it to you. However, any exercise method in the world requires the concentration of all energy. In other words, a person can only choose one in his life. One exercise method is used to resonate, and the others can only be used as auxiliary. If your brother chooses this exercise method as the main body, then the future production of the body will require various top-level materials of very high levels, and on this planet come on, this kind of material. No, a trace of disappointment flashed in Burin's eyes. My brother has been stronger than me since he was a child. No matter what happens, he is always proud, fearless, and keeps moving forward. Chayu and Clint didn't speak, just looked at her quietly. He will definitely find a way to make the best choice. I believe it, Bolen said with certainty. That's what I said, but even if he doesn't choose this exercise method as the main body, many of its contents will have an effect and positive effect on his consciousness. Chayu comforted, if he was trying to stabilize his physical fitness in the first place. Long Cai released this non-exercise method, so now is the time to sincerely give the solution. In this world, what suits you is truly the best. No matter how advanced or powerful other things are, they are only the strength of others. Don't worry, your brother is a genius. Burin nodded. She has never doubted this. The image of Nanyo as an elder brother has carved the deepest mark in her heart. The two of them picked up the bowls and drank the soup slowly. After finishing the food, Bolen packed up and prepared to wash the dishes. Suddenly, a slight rumble came slowly from a distance. The ground began to shake, and subtle electromagnetic radiation oscillated from a distance like ripples. The two of them froze almost at the same time. Is this? Clint's heart could not help but tremble. It's Hung Bai. Chiyu's roar suddenly woke the two of them up. Xiaolun gets on the mecha. Hurry. Krillin's body has not been repaired at all and cannot move. The only thing that is intact now is Burin's body. Burin's eyes first flashed with strong fear and withdrawal. Me? What are you doing? If you don't want to die, get on the plane as soon as possible, Chiyu cursed in a foul language. Amidst the roaring, Burin felt dazed and confused for a while. When he realized what he was doing, he was already sitting in the old assembled mecha. The consciousness generated by Mingdi Jisea's exercise method is like tiny spiders, constantly spitting out blue silk threads that spread out from her body and connect to the entire body. Get ready to take action, Chayu reminded. Xiaolun, the safety of Clint and I now depends entirely on you. If you don't want to die, just go fight. The opponent is not a real top-level red and white mecha, just a patrolling hybrid. Bing, if we can't defeat the other side, then we are probably going to be doomed. I can't do it. Burin's heart was beating wildly. A heavy responsibility and pressure pressed heavily on her, making her almost breathless. Do it with all your strength. Even if you fail, no one will blame you. Clint's voice came through the mecha message at this time. Fart. You idiot, get out of here, you don't want to live. I haven't lived enough. Chiyu interrupted Clint abruptly. You brat, if you can't beat that soldier, you too will run naked for me. Run naked and naked. Burin's little face suddenly turned red. On the horizon in the distance, a red and white wolf-headed humanoid mecha flew quickly towards the side. Come on, with a sudden squeeze of consciousness, Burin felt himself rushing forward, sprinting towards the opponent with big strides. The engine behind him exploded, pushing the body to slowly float and fly out. Ah 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 ah. She screamed suddenly, watching the wolf-headed mecha in her eyes getting closer and closer. Where did the rags come from? Came a hoarse female voice from the other party's machine. Seeing that the mecha was about to hit him, Burin's heart felt cold and he hurriedly tried to save it, but he didn't know how to react. Idiot! You don't even know basic movements, Chayu's voice roared. Somehow, for a moment, it seemed as if Chayu's voice overlapped with a certain voice in his memory. Burin's eyes were slightly dazed, as if he suddenly returned to the time when he asked his brother to teach him basic fighting skills. Basic fighting in the mecha is actually the same as human movements. The consciousness mecha can perfectly display any movement of the human body. No Siwa looked down at himself with contempt in his eyes. You have to remember, Burin, fighting is not about who is stronger, but about who is better at using the power in the right place. No matter how weak a person is, if he uses the power in the right way, the difference will be the same. It's going to be a world of difference. Like now. Call. Nyano suddenly kicked out and kicked himself hard in the stomach. What action should you take? Tell me. Bang. Woo. Burin held his stomach and stubbornly refused to let himself fall. Back off. Idiot. It's an attack. Attack off. Attack. Familiar scenes suddenly flashed through Burin's eyes. The red and white mecha in the distance also raised its right foot and kicked towards him. This scene was coincidentally exactly the same as the action demonstrated by brother Nono Siwa. Another voice from my brother not long ago seemed to still linger in my ears. Defense. Retreat. Stupid. Defense is to better extend the attack time. Retreat is to better find the attack angle. All of this is for one purpose, that is, to kill the enemy. Bang. In an instant, the two mechas collided at the same time. Burin waved his arms and punched the opponent's head hard with two punches. At the same time, he twisted his waist and strangely dodged the red and white mecha's kick. This strange movement surprised both Klin and Chayu, who were watching from a distance. From a distance, Burin's machine looks like a skilled and agile dancer. It can avoid the opponent's dangerous attacks and at the same time launch powerful assassination-like punches. What exactly is this guy Burin imitating? Chayu asked in a low voice, wondering. Simulation, Klin was stunned. What's the meaning? Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 889. Ming Emperor Gizaya is one of the rare thousand change kings who is famous for her simulations. She can partially reproduce the abilities of powerful pilots she has encountered in battles or given guidance. This trait even includes simulating the opponent's style and personality. And some stunts. Now it seems that this guy Burin has really started. But Chayu sighed. It's just what, this ability is very powerful. If I also had this ability, wouldn't I be able to become a master in no time? Klin breathed a sigh of relief. It's just that the consciousness produced by practicing this training method must be a strong enough pilot as the simulation object. Especially the first simulation object will almost form a stereotype of the entire pilot's main combat style. Important influence. I originally thought she would choose the red and white guy. Unexpectedly, she chose instead. Who? Her brother, Nano Civilian. Isn't that awesome? That's what I said, but the opponent is not an ordinary pilot. He is at least around level 3, and Nono Siwa is probably only level 3 or 4 now, and the level of simulation can only be 3 points of the opponent's at most. It's less than 1, and the odds of winning against the opponent like this are very low. Moreover, in the future. It did not say that in the future, as the opponents we face become stronger and stronger, the first chosen simulation object may be. Aha! A dark blade of light flashed instantly, completely attracting the attention of both people. In the distance, Burin and the red and white soldiers were fighting together, and strange sword lights flashed from time to time. Burin's figure at this time was actually vaguely similar to the no-no machine that Clint encountered. He is agile and dodges, but when attacking, he concentrates all his strength. The ruthlessness and determination are simply not what Burin can do when he first enters the battlefield. Clang! The four arms of the mecha intertwined, and Burin was shaken by the huge consciousness and flew back several steps. In a pure competition of consciousness, she was more than one step weaker than her opponent. Retreating is also for a better attack. Cold cruelty suddenly flashed in Burin's eyes. The whole person's consciousness suddenly increased significantly. In an instant, the blade in her hand shook violently, and a cunning consciousness surged into it. The blade flickered out like a phantom, exploding and disappearing into the air. Boom! In a moment, a large piece of the red and white mecha's right arm exploded, igniting red flames. In Hungbei, the woman wanted to speak, her voice mixed with shock, surprise, fear, and pain. But he could never say it again. There was a loud bang, and the red and white machine suddenly exploded. The fuselage was completely transformed into countless parts. Burin's mecha, on the other hand, stood quietly on the spot, a master's demeanor slowly spreading out. It gave Clint an extremely familiar feeling and temperament. That kind of temperament made him involuntarily recall the terrifying mecha that slowly got up in the darkness. So fast. What the hell is this escalation before the battle? Seeing this scene, Chayu was also completely confused. Isn't this my humming patent? Upgrade. It was also the first time for Clint to see Burin control a mecha in battle. He didn't expect that this performance was simply incomparable. Being able to defeat the opponent is mainly due to the last blow. Burin has upgraded to the second level of consciousness. The power of Ming Emperor's training method lies in simulation and treatment, but the key is that each level can improve the two levels of mecha. Level speed and level 2 penetration, that is to say, Xiaolun has reached level 2 consciousness and can be upgraded to the speed and penetration of level 4 of the general pilot training method. Coupled with the combat skills of simulated high-level pilots, it is exactly an absolute nemesis against high-defense mechas. After reaching the level 2 Ming Emperor training method, she is no match against level 4 ordinary pilots. She is really as fast as a rocket. Chayu explained solemnly. I didn't expect that she would be able to advance in the first battle, but after so many years of accumulation, it's time to advance. She is just one step ahead of you. But even if she upgrades, the opponent is not an ordinary pilot. How could it be so simple? Clint smiled bitterly. Even Xiaolun could kill his opponent. He was hunted like a dead dog before and was almost destroyed. Don't be discouraged. Look at the opponents you faced before. With your level, at least your ability to escape is beyond the standard. You are definitely better than Xiaolun, Chiyu comforted. Are you so comforting? Clint was helpless. After laughing at Clint, Chiyu came back to her senses, feeling something was wrong. There seemed to be something wrong with the aura exuded by Xiaolun's simulated state just now. I always feel like I have seen it somewhere. Where is it? You know, even if you upgrade to level 2, you shouldn't kill your opponent so quickly, right? That's a red and white level 3 pilot. Chayu was about to speak when suddenly she seemed to realize something. Holy shit! Isn't that a consciousness force field that only level 5 masters have? Coax. At this moment, in the red firelight, Burin's machine suddenly fell to the sky and fell on the grass, motionless. Violent sparks and holes suddenly exploded on the machine. Obviously, the entire body was unusable due to the instantaneous explosion just now. Damn it! The simulated pilot is too strong. Get Xiaolun out quickly, We must find a place to treat her immediately. Seeing this scene, Chi-yu quickly yelled and ordered, every simulation consumes a lot of energy and spirit, simulating a level 5 master at Xiaolun's level is simply overdrawing your life. Take her away quickly. Klin's expression changed, and without hesitation, he rushed forward, quickly opened the hatch with his own strange strength, and took out the unconscious Burin from inside. The two quickly put away the machine body and some red and white debris, and ran towards the distance. Flying Ray City. Garen, who was sitting quietly on the bed in the luxurious room, suddenly opened his eyes. Huh, he seemed to have noticed a trace of some inexplicable aura just now. The moment it touched him, it disappeared instantly. This trace of power seems to carry some slightly familiar feeling. Just, what was that? He looked around. Garen himself stood between her and the corpse pillar, quietly adjusting his body condition. He hadn't indulged himself like this for a long time, and it could be regarded as allowing him to completely relax his tense mind. After reviewing the aura just now, Garen still couldn't find the root cause, so he could only keep it secretly in his mind and wait to catch the opponent when it appeared again in the future. Standing up, Garen walked out of the room, and the little bitch behind him also stood up quickly. His body was covered with bruises from being rubbed too much, his long hair was hanging down, and he was only wearing a white bathrobe. She didn't want to stay in this room for a moment, but Garen didn't open her mouth to change, and she didn't dare to say anything, so she could only endure it silently. This room contained a fully automatic tool that could turn a person into a corpse pillar, which made her feel intense fear from beginning to end. The two of them walked out of the room one after another. Outside was a charming and exquisite small garden. The red, yellow, and pink flowers are separated in clusters, with a faint gray-white path in the middle. Some flower pots are hanging, and some are winding upward along the grape trellis. There are also a few benches and small tables for resting among the green branches and leaves, and exquisite sweet drinks have been placed on them. Garen looked forward along the grey path and saw the person who greeted them yesterday, the temperate slave, standing at the door at the end. The other party bent down and spoke respectfully. The manpower you want has been arranged and ready to go. Very good. As a reward, if you can find the person I want, I will pay you enough when you come back. Garen nodded and used the other party's power in the radiation belt to find Burin Chayu and others. This was also the arrangement he had thought of from the beginning. I'm glad to serve you, but recently the mecha patrols of the White Light Organization have begun to spread and disperse throughout the radiation belt, and our territory has been compressed to a large extent, the temperate slave said briefly. Just do your best. Garen frowned. He raised his hand and read Enda's message, informing everyone that it was time to set off and that the energy blocks had been replenished. We will pass by here to replenish energy blocks when we come back. I hope you won't disappoint me. If we find someone, I don't know, sir, can we change the exchange rewards? The temperate slave asked respectfully. Say it. We hope to be able to exchange related technologies for nutrient repair tanks. Repair tank? Isn't it just a simple survival cabin? Garen was speechless. This is a technology that has been eliminated in the domain for many years. The technological level of this group of people is estimated to be from the scrapped mecha warships that were eliminated many years ago. The results obtained. Unexpectedly, after so long, no one in the domain has leaked the latest technology. It seemed that he could see Garen's doubts and disapproval. The temperate slave explained with a wry smile. The latest technology, because there are not enough alloys and raw materials, will have no effect even if we get it. The only way is to trade old and applicable technologies. This is also impossible. Understood, I will redeem it for you when I come back. Garen nodded indifferently. This technology was clearly priced at 10 points in the inner courtyard, so giving it away for free would take up space. It is estimated that there are too few mecha masters out in the area, and there are very few independent action pilots like them. Even if there are, there are even fewer who can come to Flying Ray City. This has led to the current situation. Thank you for your generosity, sir. Is there anything else you need? The temperate slave lowered his head and asked respectfully. This woman. Garen looked back at the little bitch behind him. It was his first time with this woman, and since he was devoted to her, her personality didn't seem to be distorted, and she could still be cultivated a little. She is already your private property, the temperate slave quickly answered. Well, assign her a position and I will come out to check on her from time to time. Garen nodded. He also wants to place an intelligence point in the radiation belt. Although the environment here is cruel, there are still many things that can be used. For outsiders, this is an extremely dangerous area where you can contract radiation sickness if you are not careful. You will never go out casually unless you can get out. But for him, this little bit of radiation is nothing to fear. No problem. Let's go. Garen. Adaka's voice came from the watch. Garen looked at his watch. It was around 10 o'clock in the morning. Come right away. The next stop is the ruins of the war. Clear. After arranging everything, Garen quickly rushed towards the place where the mecha was parked. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 890. Black peaks passed by below one after another. The four mechas slowly flew over the continuous black mountains and moved quickly in the designated direction. On the mountain peaks below, between some stone platforms on the mountainside, you can vaguely see black and gray abandoned ruins, and some are even abandoned bases. There are vague creatures moving among them, and the shadows cannot be seen clearly. The ruins are scattered sparsely, and some even reveal huge yellow gears of different sizes. The gears rotate slowly, spewing out streams of white smoke from time to time. Garen lowered his head and looked down at the ruins of the scenery below. Is there anyone in these ruins bases? Why are they still spinning now? The mechas sail automatically, and their pilots do not control them. They are completely independent passengers. Naturally, you can also talk freely and do other things. A red dot symbol lit up slightly on the control panel platform in front of him, and Linda's voice came out. Galen, this is your first time here, so you don't know much about this place. These ruins are not inhabited by anyone and can rotate automatically. They mainly rely on some geothermal energy. However, because this is a radiation belt, although the geothermal energy here is very large, but the radiation pollution is greater, so even the radiation people dare not approach here easily. First, the radiation is too heavy, and you will contract more troublesome diseases if you are not careful. Second, there are many radiation mutant beasts and radiation here. The existence of corpses. Ordinary people simply can't deal with it. Radiated corpse. Yes, after undergoing certain radiation mutations, the corpse will develop an instinctive desire to hunt, thus becoming active again and wandering on its own. When the radiation energy is sufficient, the radiation corpse will move freely and hunt everywhere, but once the energy after it is consumed, it will fall to the ground and return to the state of a corpse. Therefore, entering the ruins also depends on luck. If you are lucky, you may be able to find some valuable documents or materials inside, Linda explained with a smile. I have entered the ruins once, but it is very dangerous inside. Generally, pilots only go in to deliver food. If you don't have power above level 3, it's better not to go in. Garen responded and thanked Linda for her explanation. Then carefully observed the various ruins below. As they continued to fly forward, Anda's voice came out from the communicator after a while. Attention, there is a group of mutant birds coming ahead. Directly in front of the four mechas, a large group of densely packed black birds were rushing toward them. Each of these birds is about 1 meter long. They are not much different from ordinary birds, but they all have 2 pairs of 4 furry fox ears, and their beaks are not like ordinary birds. It's straight like that, but like hooks, very sharp. Gwagwagwa. Amidst a burst of piercing noises, Anda's whole body suddenly released a circle of invisible sound wave fluctuations. The fluctuations spread out, and the group of mutant birds suddenly showed a trace of panic and confusion. Most of the birds scattered and fled. Only some of the strongest birds still rushed over, but they looked even more fierce. Anda lightly connected the high-energy ray gun in his hand, and dozens of white lights shot out, accurately hitting the heads of the flying birds, beating them to pieces. The corpses fell down, and before they hit the ground, they were killed by a group of unknown birds. Out of nowhere, a swarm of flying insects that looked like blood-sucking mosquitoes surrounded him, and after a few hits, only the bones were left smashing to the ground. Garen was at the back of the team, watching Anda easily deal with the mutant bird, and his original vigilance gradually relaxed. Ahead is the largest battlefield ruins nearby, the battlefield ruins. We have to search here. Maybe we can be lucky enough to find newly condensed mutated metal. Anda's voice came from the communication. Be careful. There are many radioactive corpses hidden in the ruins of the battlefield, and there are also very strong mutant beasts, even level 4 mutant beasts. Don't make a big noise or cause trouble easily, Anda warned carefully. Several people responded and slowly began to press the height of the mecha, flying towards the largest huge black mountain directly in front. Black Mountain is far higher than all other mountains in the surrounding area. Compared with the surrounding mountains, it is more like the gap between adults and children. Even if the 3 of them scanned the huge mountain from left to right inside the mecha, they could barely see the edge of the mountain within their field of vision. They could only see a large black rocky mountain. There is a good name here, called Sleeping Forest. If you don't wake it up, everything will be fine. Ives whistled loudly. I heard that engineers even found valuable ancient energy furnaces and nuclear weapons here. Those kind of things can be exchanged for a complete set of customized mecha services. If we had better nuclear weapons, a good small battleship would be enough, Anda replied with a smile. Be careful. Radiation pollution will soon reach the warning level. When we move inside, we need to consume additional energy to form a shield to avoid being contaminated. I have installed anti-radiation devices on all 3 models, but this thing consumes a lot of energy. Within an hour, if you can't find anything inside, you all come out quickly to gather. You can't stay in there for a long time, otherwise you will get radiation sickness. Don't blame me for not warning you. Understood, X3. The 4 martial arts units immediately dispersed and flew towards the vast black-gray metal city at the top of the mountain. The closer Garen flew, the more strange he felt about the city on the top of the mountain. Deadly silence, without the breath of life, but with a huge pressure that could explode at any time. There were suspended metal blocks and huge turning yellow gears everywhere. The ruined city was getting closer and bigger. After he separated from the team, he flew directly towards the east of the city. This city was very huge, comparable to the Black City. Garen just flew to one of the 3 large blocks, and randomly found a colored block in it to drop. There are more than 10 such areas in one whole area, each one is equivalent to the size of a flying ray city. The wide street, the abandoned bumper car park, only the yellow awning with a general ceiling is left. The Ferris wheel with many broken support columns is like a tattered windmill. From time to time, it moves inexplicably and makes a creaking sound. Crisp sound. The angle at which Garen flew in happened to be an amusement park. The mecha slowly landed on the ground. On the right side was a wooden carriage. The rotating red wooden horse turned slowly and made crisp music. La 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 la, kites are flying, small fish are swimming, a peaceful life requires more to satisfy, la 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 la. The music of the Trojan horse can even be heard in galleons. Although the accent is a bit weird, it is the voice of a little girl, but you can still understand the meaning. Waves of cold wind blew by, and at a glance around the city, there was no life in the amusement park except for some things that were still moving on their own. It looked like a deserted place. Bang 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 bang. Garen lifted the mecha's footsteps and walked forward. The heavy mecha body walked in the amusement park, and the sound of footsteps continued to vibrate out, and the empty echo suddenly came back. It's really desolate here, Garen frowned. For some reason, he always felt an inexplicable sense of crisis here. It was faint and looming, as if there was something here that could threaten his life. The empty amusement park gave him a very uncomfortable feeling. Squeak. Suddenly there was a sudden sound behind him. Garen quickly activated the rear sensors and saw a rocking chair placed in the open space shaking slightly, as if someone had just stood up from it. Withdrawing his gaze, Garen continued to move forward slowly. Soon, there was the entrance to the amusement park, a white painted arched gate, but much of the white paint had been worn away by time. Standing on one side of the door is a 5-meter-tall clown model, dressed in red, with bright red curly hair, and 2 round red cherries stuck to both sides of his cheeks. He looks like a child-friendly smile. Wow! Suddenly there was a sound of glass being broken in the distance. Garen frowned and opened the communication. In that direction, Avis should have passed by just now. Avis, he tried shouting a few words, but there was no answer. There was a hissing sound in the communicator, all the noise of violent interference. Turning off the communicator with a snap, Garen knew that there was no way to use communication here. It seemed that he could only wait until he left before contacting him. The moment he walked out of the amusement park, Garen intuitively felt that the clown's eyes seemed to be moving. He couldn't help but turn around and take a closer look at the clown model. It was clearly made of stone and metal, and the eyes were simply painted on. Is it an illusion? Garen, who had always trusted his own feelings, couldn't help but feel slightly confused. Turning around and walking towards the door, outside the amusement park is a dark and gloomy street, with tall buildings on both sides, blocking most of the light. Above is a slightly silvery lead cloud, and below is a large block of dark shadows. The ground was clean and there were no signs of damage. It's just that there's no light and it looks a bit eerie. There should be some useful materials in here, Garen thought for a while and turned on the mecha's detector. But the trouble is, the radiation interference here is too great and there is no way to use it. The detector is everywhere. The dense red dots were obviously a malfunction due to interference. Suddenly, he seemed to feel that something was aiming at him. The mecha suddenly paused and moved a step to the left. Bang! Suddenly there was a deep hole in the ground where he was supposed to walk out. Who? Garen looked in the direction from which the crater came, and saw only a blurry figure disappearing quickly. He was about to activate his body and catch up, when suddenly a creepy feeling suddenly came from his side. No. It's the one just now. Boom. In the violent green light explosion, the entire street and the 2 surrounding buildings were shrouded in a miserable green. Powerful corrosive bomb. A large amount of green mucus splashed, and even though Garen reacted extremely quickly and avoided most of it, a small amount still stuck to the anti-radiation shield of the mecha. The transparent shield was corroded by green slime. Flying far back and entering the amusement park, Garen then self-checked the state of the machine. The guy who attacked just now was definitely not an ordinary person. Such a powerful corrosive bomb may not be of much use outside, but at such a high altitude in a radiation environment, the effect is very impressive. It can greatly consume the energy of the anti-radiation shield, but the shield cannot be removed here, otherwise the powerful radiation pollution will corrode the pilot and the body in the shortest time, and becoming a radioactive person will be a real life worse than death. From a high-ranking big shot, he will fall into an ordinary lowly radioactive person. The body was not damaged, but the explosion of the corrosive bomb consumed at least 20% of the body's energy. Garen carefully recalled the sneak attack by that person just now. His movements were very fast, and his consciousness was unable to lock onto the opponent. The guy was at least level 3. And the most important thing is that the opponent's technique is very sophisticated, and he retreats without looking at the consequences of a blow. This is the key to his being able to avoid his own route searching despite his third-level consciousness. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 891. On the other side, inside the ruins. 2 light yellow mechas were blocking Adaka's black plate standard mecha front and back on the middle street. You didn't expect it, did you? It only took us 3 days from the Fatway to the time we found you, and you run pretty fast, a yellow mecha said with a sneer. That woman is really ruthless. She actually sent you two to hunt me down. She must have spent a lot of money, right? Anda sat in the mecha and spoke calmly, but no one saw him looking at Wei Wei at this time. On Khan's forehead, 2 extremely troublesome forces of tyrannical consciousness tightly suppressed him, making it impossible for him to escape, because he knew that once he moved, what was waiting for him would be defeated by the opponent's long-range attack immediately. You can still escape so far after offending the young lady. You are the first one. Don't say we won't give you a chance. For the sake of the family, you should take action first. A yellow machine in the back. A cold female voice came from the armor. Feng Qi, you are involved in the fight for family inheritance without authorization. Even if you are a 5th-level guest minister, you will not have an easy time. Don't you understand this? Enda said loudly. Of course I understand, the woman at the back responded, but who told you to kill the eldest lady's fiancé? There is nothing we can do if we are invited out. Hey, if you don't kill him, why don't you wait for him to kill me? I have no interest in sitting and waiting for death, Enda sneered. Do you still want to delay time? Give up. Your teammates can't protect themselves. Do you still think they will have a chance to come over and help you? Feng Ling said calmly. Even if you are all talented elites from the Black Disc inner court, your potential is just potential before it turns into strength. Do you still dare to kill them? The elites in the inner court are not that simple. Kill them? Of course it's impossible, but just letting them retreat is enough. Before Feng Ling finished speaking, he suddenly pulled out 2 silver-white spears from both hands and pointed them at Enda with one hand. A quick victory. Poof. 2 muffled sounds were ejected from the muzzle of the gun, and the sky turned into 2 huge yellow wire meshes, covering nuclear Enda head-on. Garen carefully used something to scrape off the mucus on his shield. The metal piece stained with mucus was soon corroded and emitted white smoke. The metal actually began to gradually soften. From the original hardness, it soon became as soft as fur. The other party's purpose was very clear, which was to get him out of this ruins. The shooting just now used powerful corrosive bombs, and the purpose was obviously the same. It did not mean to kill people. I glanced at the remaining energy of the mecha. There was still 52% of the energy mark. When I arrived here after a long journey, there was still 80% of the energy mark. Now there is only 52% left. It is obviously the corrosive bomb just combined here. The result of high-intensity radiation. Since you want me to withdraw from here, then either I have an ulterior secret about this ruins, or someone in the group has the intention to divide the team and make us independent. Garen combined the previous words. The answer, 2 answers were guessed at once, and the other party has no murderous intention. It is obvious that he knows the identity of our team. In this case, the second possibility is very high. Golan, are you there? Suddenly Linda's voice came from the side. Garen turned around and saw Linda slowly driving the mecha down from the side of the sky. I finally found you. Ives has already run out of here. He was also attacked by corrosive bombs. The other party had no killing intent, but just seemed to expel us. After I contacted Ives, his mecha energy was consumed a lot. Let him go out first. Do you know who is attacking us? Garen asked in a low voice. I don't know, but I went to where Captain Anda went and didn't find him. I just found that the ground seemed to have been hit by bombs. Apparently the attackers didn't use corrosive bombs against the captain, Linda said with some worry. Garen narrowed his eyes. He was slightly surprised that Linda was able to find the three of them in such a short time. You must know that the interference here is not generally strong. The sensors on the mecha can hardly be used. Able to judge direction by oneself. However, everyone has their own secrets, and those who dare to take on this mission are not ordinary characters. After all, the radiation belt is not a place where most pilots are willing to come out casually. What suggestions do you have? Garen thought for a while and asked in a low voice. I suspect that the other party wants to separate us from the captain. Their real target should be Captain Anda, Linda whispered. Needless to say, both of them knew that Anda must also be a pseudonym. What I mean is that since it is Captain Anda's own trouble, then let him solve it by himself. After all, this is a private matter. Is that what you think? Garen said calmly. Certainly. Then let's wait outside first. Garen had no intention of getting involved in Anda's private affairs. And what he was worried about was not the attackers, but more the uncomfortable feeling this ruin gave him. The two mechas slowly took off one after the other, flying towards the outside of the ruins. Boom! Suddenly, there was a violent explosion in the distance, which was faintly mixed with Anda's roar, like a wounded beast. It looks like it's hard for the captain to handle it. Linda slowly stopped the mecha and hung it in mid-air. What are you going to do? Just as Galen asked, he saw Linda rushing towards the direction of the sound. Stopping in mid-air for a moment, Garen quickly followed. Unlimited, the yellow mecha was like a peacock with its tail open, and instantly released dozens or hundreds of white laser lines from behind. Each of these laser lines was as thick as a finger, and they were so densely packed that they actually turned and pounced towards Anda. On the other side, the yellow mecha wind chime clasped its hands on its chest and watched coldly. Tisk tisk tisk. Countless laser lines penetrated the surrounding buildings and rushed towards Anda from above the ground. Anda flew up quickly, making a series of evasive movements while continuously shooting out high-energy ray gun beams to offset the white laser lines. However, he was still stabbed from time to time, making violent sounds of pain. Unlimited, he also burst out with large white laser lines, but these laser lines were far less numerous and bright than the opponent's. Just now, he used the same move to fight the opponent. Unfortunately, he failed. Both sides' consciousness stunts were far inferior to the opponent in terms of their ultimate skills and the adaptability of the mecha. The large amount of white light emitted this time offset most of the opponent's white lines, but there were still some laser threads that pierced the shoulders of Anda's mecha. With a bang, he fell to the ground, leaning against a street building on one side. Give up, hand over the map, and we'll give you a treat, Feng Chime said lukewarmly from the side. Hee, come and get it yourself if you can, Anda replied with a sneer. I don't know. Feng Ling straightened up and moved his body. Four metallic silver spikes suddenly opened behind her, shining and reflecting like screen fans. The machine grabbed it with her backhand and pulled out two silver spikes. She walked slowly towards Anda. The other mecha on one side wisely stopped attacking and allowed the two of them to fight one-on-one. In an instant, the wind chime made a mistake, and a sliding step appeared beside Anda. The spikes of both hands stabbed at Anda's waist like phantoms. The whole body brought out a series of afterimages, and another spike simultaneously stabbed Anda's head. Department. At this time, the speed of Anda's body suddenly dropped to a considerable level, seeming to be much slower than before. At this time, Garen and his two men had also arrived nearby. Seeing this scene, Garen was slightly shocked. This wind chime was actually a real 5th-level master of combat. A 5th-level master, in the eyes of ordinary people, was a real top machine. Teacher, you may not be able to see it once in a year or so. I didn't expect to meet a new level 5 master so quickly as soon as I came out this time. And it's not academic. Judging from the opponent's attack style, you can tell that this yellow mecha has obviously gone through countless battles and has extremely rich experience. It has no intention of holding back at all. Quick and accurate. You two, please go back. We are dealing with private matters here at this time, a man's voice came from behind the two of them. Linda and Garen turned around and saw a yellow mecha appearing behind them at some point. We are subordinates of Lord Tony Amu of the Thousand-Year Tree. We are here to resolve some personal grudges with your Captain Anda. Please cooperate with us. A high-level person in the Millennium Tree? Tony Damogaran knew that this person had a similar position to Blanding in Blue Narcissus. He was also a well-known high-level person in the Millennium Tree. In an organization like Millennium Tree, those who can reach high positions definitely rely on their strength. Anda has a token of the mission we accepted. Besides, you attacked us first. Isn't that a bit excessive? Linda replied loudly. At this time, Garen had already faintly felt that there were obviously more mechas surrounding the two of them, and the other party was simply stalling for time. He and Linda looked at each other in the communicator. Almost at the same time, just when the other party was about to reply, they both shouted at the same time. Do it! Laugh! A small white dagger popped out of Linda's hand and stabbed Galen in the lower back. At this time, Garen was rushing forward. He took out a long black knife in his right hand like lightning, and aimed it at the opponent's head and slashed it down. This speed had instantly reached the limit of this machine. But he never expected that Linda beside him would attack him immediately. You! Death! Linda suddenly swung the dagger into blue light, going a step faster, as if grabbing a ball of dazzling blue light, and hit the side of Garen's mecha hard. There was a sizzling sound. Garen made a spin and actually withdrew his power under the most impossible circumstances. It would have been impossible for anyone else to stop at the drop of a hat when the explosive inertia were overwhelming. But Garen did it, and his Wan Zhen Gong was such powerful fighting skills, as a collection of his mastery of martial arts, plus the fact that he did not use his true 5th level full strength at this time, only the superficial 4th level consciousness that exploded. In a split second, Galen punched Linda's cockpit fiercely with his other hand. He was actually the most arrogant person who traded injuries for his life. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 892. Linda's pupils were constricted and she was not willing to fight Garen to the death. She was a killer, not a death warrior. She was shocked that the other party was able to counterattack immediately, causing her foolproof sneak attack to fall short. But at this time, she couldn't care less about the pity and could only push her body back and eject away from a distance. Garen, who was under sneak attack at this time, had no time to pay attention to her. Several yellow mechas around him fired white tracking missiles at him almost at the same time. Strips of white smoke from missiles pulled out countless dense white lines in the air, flying in from all directions. Boom! A large number of missiles exploded, completely blowing up the body where Garen was located into a sea of flames with thick smoke billowing from it. The pilots in several yellow mechas frowned. They all saw that the other party was obviously not with them, but they suddenly attacked their own people. The leading mecha pondered for a moment and raised his hand to signal everyone to step back. He is the killer of ZooXIN.com, don't get involved in this matter. After the yellow mechas launched their missiles, most of them stopped attacking. Just now, the opponent used a moment of concentrated fire to attack simultaneously, which was equivalent to using them once. Even if the killers of the Heartzui network are not easy to deal with, as a member of the Millennium Tree, these people were vaguely unhappy. Brother, why don't we keep them here together? Anyway, we are far more outnumbered than them. Stupid. Are you surrounded and killed at every turn? People won't resist. Resistance will not lead to casualties. I didn't bring you out to kill randomly. I want to take you back intact, the lead yellow mecha snorted coldly. Those are the elites of the inner courtyard, not ordinary pilots that you can just kill outside. The proposed mecha said nothing. At this time, Garen's body finally reappeared. In the moment of the fire explosion, even he would inevitably suffer damage. Especially Linda's sudden attack, which almost broke the lumbar support column of his body. The lumbar support column is a key point of the skeletal system. Once broken, the body can only be paralyzed on the ground, unable to move. The consciousness mecha has almost formed a structure similar to that of living things. Fortunately, he mobilized his fifth-level consciousness in time to form a physical force field, blocking most of the explosions and repelling the sneak attack trajectory. But even so, his body was slightly damaged. The energy furnace consumed by the force field only has about 30% of the energy left. Kaka. The black galleon body moved slowly, then suddenly raised its hand and struck to the left. Bang. Linda's black mecha suddenly appeared in the empty space on the left, and was hit by a hammer. He staggered and was beaten back again and again. Why did you sneak attack me? Garen's expression remained unchanged as he sat in the mecha. Originally, the group of people didn't have much trust. Now that they were sneak attacked, he didn't have much to say. It's just that he was a little confused about the sneak attack at the critical moment. Linda's personality was unremarkable, and he felt that he had never offended her in any way. Someone paid 100 million to hang your head, Linda laughed. Although the machine was beaten back, it seemed that her defense performance was very good and there was no damage at all. Heart-killing network, Garen suddenly understood, but with his personality, he didn't care much at all. Even a mere killer with level 4 consciousness would not be his opponent if he still attacked by surprise. This idea just flashed through my mind, and powerful fluctuations of consciousness slowly oscillated from all around. 3 consciousness mechas of the same 5th level slowly flew up, surrounding Garen in the center. Coupled with Linda, a master of the 4th level of consciousness, the strength at that moment was obviously the resonance skill, otherwise it would not be so powerful at all. In fact, it is equivalent to a 5th level pilot who does not know the resonance skill. At one time, 4 masters of the same level surrounded Garen. Even the yellow mecha and others on the side were stunned by such a lineup. "Boss, what should we do?" a yellow mecha asked in a low voice. "We have attacked that person in a sneak attack just now. If the other party thinks he is with these killers, what else can we do?" "Stay out of your own business," the leader of the yellow mecha waved his hand. "Everyone, withdraw." Within a few seconds, all the yellow mechas present retreated to their hiding places. They are the men who are chasing Enda, and they are not the same as these killers from the heart-killing network. They can be rewarded with a reward of 100 million. Such people must have a very strong background or strength, and it is not a good thing to mess with them rashly. As for the previous sneak attack, it was also their counter-attack when the other party wanted to make a surprise attack first. Even if that person survives in the future, it will be easy to explain, but if they really get involved, it will be very troublesome for either party. The scene was chaotic. On the street between the buildings on the right, Anda was being beaten by wind chimes, with scars all over his body. There was a row of buildings on the left, and Garen was surrounded by the killers of the heart-killing network. 4 strands of consciousness comparable to level 5 are locked on the galleon body. His heart suddenly sank. Even if his true strength is now a 5th level pilot, he is surrounded by 4 masters of the same level at the same time, and many of these people may be elites in the inner courtyard. They all have at least 1 or 2 life-saving trump cards in their hands, so they can enter the inner courtyard. The elites at least have almost no flaws in their fighting skills, and they all have their own unique killing skills. Calculated, the strength is at least equivalent to that of a top martial artist who is a trainee secret martial arts queen, and each person's combat power is at least about half of his own. Fortunately, I was well prepared this time after knowing about the killer of ZooXIN.com. Garen slowly took out a small black box. I looked at the body's energy scale again and found that only 28% was left. "Quick fight," Linda shouted and was the first one to rush forward. At the same time, the other 3 people also released their attacks. 2 people surrounded them, and the remaining one took out a shoulder-mounted death ray cannon from behind. The muzzle of the gun dimly lit up with a red halo. Ground-shattering slash, Linda's dagger actually struck out with a sharp white light knife, which cut through the ground and shot towards the side. Extremely fast. Suddenly, with a scoff, the white light sword actually split into 3 swords and made a curve to rush towards the Garen body from 3 directions. Garen jumped slightly, holding 2 black knives in his hands, and waved them into a ball of black balls to block the 2 mechas rushing from both sides. The fiercely surging 5th-level consciousness rushed into the sword from both sides, colliding hard with Garen's consciousness. With a buzzing sound, Painting Talon's 4th-level consciousness was broken immediately. The 2 consciousnesses were only slightly weaker. They continued to rush towards the core of the machine body along the blade. Once they were rushed to the core of the machine body, then no matter how strong this machine is, it will still be controlled by the opponent's consciousness. Garen mustered up Wu Ming's 5th-level consciousness, divided into 2 groups and faced the 2 of them head-on. Boom! 3 strands of 5th-level consciousness clashed at the same time, violently exploding on the Garen machine's sword. Even from the periphery, one could clearly see that the blade suddenly twisted, and invisible transparent ripples bloomed. Clang, 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 the 3 mechas scattered at the same time. Garen and the 2 pilots were slightly injured almost at the same time. What kind of training method is this? The quality of consciousness is so terrifying. Can half of it be used against others with full strength? Linda was shocked, but she was really greedy when she immediately rose. If only I could get this workout. Explode, the killer armor in the distance finally took action, and a red laser cannon shot out, blasting away the air on the surrounding ground and everything in front of it. The high-intensity red laser cannon supported by the death ray was like a red pillar as thick as a bucket, slamming into Garen, who was unable to dodge. Linda took the opportunity to take a step back, gritted her teeth, and a small black grenade appeared in her hand at some point. With a cruel heart, she hit the grenade in the direction of Galleon in pain. With a loud bang, the black grenade split open instantly, and a large amount of blue plasma burst out. This strong plasma exploded with blue fluorescence and a faint arc, almost completely sealing the Galleon. All rear possible dodges. High-concentration plasma bombs cost 6 million each and are very lethal against even level 5 mechas. There is a death ray in front and a large area plasma bomb in the back. Almost at the same time that Garen had repulsed the 2 level 5 pilots, they all exploded together. The opponent's killers cooperated very well, without a single pause in between. Garen was just in the pause period where he was slightly paralyzed by 2 forces of consciousness. Although the body senses danger immediately and reacts, the body is just an ordinary standard mecha from the Black Disk domain after all. The response speed is not bad under normal circumstances, but with such continuous high intensity and rapid reflexes, except for the first time, it can barely. In addition to the reaction, the next action cannot be transmitted at all. There are too many consciousness signals too fast. They are blocked in the body's circuit and there is no feedback. The body's reaction has been paused for a moment. It was at this moment that Garen truly realized that only the mecha that is completely his own, the most suitable mecha for him at this stage, can he exert his full strength, while the unsuitable mecha will bring almost as many flaws to him. Deadly. The speed that stopped for a moment left Garen with no time to dodge and make any more moves. Hiss. The thick red death light hit the front of the Garan body hard, and a large amount of plasma stuck to the back of the Garan body, constantly corroding the force field to the point of hissing, and quickly consuming the remaining energy. There was no sound, no movement. Just as the death light was about to penetrate the mecha's force field shield, a huge sawtooth ripple spread violently in all directions with Galleons as the center. The jagged edges were still rotating, bringing out a huge force that pushed the death light and plasma away at the same time. Complete annihilation. Garen was sitting in the cabin. A black box in his hand slowly shattered and cracked, turning into a pile of fine black sand that flowed down between his fingers. That was the Setsuna carton, a life-saving item he got from the Glory Noble. It could instantly burst out with a powerful thrust at the inheritance level, but it had no lethality and could only be used for self-protection. The range is 15 meters. The huge sawtooth ripples of thrust violently knocked away the surrounding killer armors. At the same time, Linda was pushed away and slammed into a building on the side, creating a clear depression. Taking advantage of this momentary explosion, Garen manipulated the machine to escape from the encirclement by leaping several times. Even he wanted to fight back, but the trouble was that the energy consumed by the machine was too much. His energy was insufficient to begin with, and now he was attacked by a sneak attack. Continuous attacks are already on the verge of the red line, with only 12% left, and it is still declining. Controlling the machine body, galleons flew into the sky. The killer carrying the death ray cannon below still wanted to attack and aim, but found that the opponent suddenly shot out, turned off the engine in the distance, and fell hard. For a moment, the engine and the force between gravity changes the direction trajectory instantly. Laugh. The shot missed directly and just shot a red line in the sky. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 893. Damn it. This kid is so slippery, he won't die even if he does this. The killer dropped the death ray cannon, which was already so hot that it was about to melt. This thing could only fire 2 shots. It was originally an inferior product, but now it no longer works. The one just now was a one-time explosive device. It has no lethality, just pure thrust. Chase. Linda stepped forward, activated the mecha and chased after him. They almost thought they were foolproof, but if the other party got away with them like this, then they wouldn't be able to survive in the world of killers, especially 2 of the 5th level killers. Use props to force it away. It hardly worked. The violent shaking battle here also attracted the attention of the other side. Wind Chime looked over through the hole in the building and was slightly startled when he saw the Gallon mecha flying away quickly. But at this moment, Anda exploded. The unlimited killing technique actually exploded twice at once, and the superimposed unlimited beams were doubled. Even though his original killing technique was one step weaker, superimposing it twice produced a huge change in power. Tisk tisk tisk. A large number of white light filaments densely covered almost the entire surrounding block. Even Feng Chime and another person were caught off guard. Who knew that Enda, who already seemed to be dying, could actually unleash such a terrifying move? Enda's body exploded with clouds of electric mist everywhere, just like the human body exploding with clouds of blood mist. Although the entire mecha that he had modified many times looked like a standard mecha, in the mainland it was already a powerful country with many modified machines. But just like that, after 2 unlimited bursts in a short period of time, his body also suffered extensive damage in an instant. 80% of the energy transmission system completely collapsed. The body completely lost its combat effectiveness, and only the remaining propulsion engine could still move. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Adaka, under the cover of countless white lines, rushed into the sky and chased Garen, the killer, and other machines. In just 2 seconds, all the white light was offset by the wind chimes that were also released without limit. She looked at Enda, who was gradually receding in the sky with a pale face. It has exceeded the range of unlimited long-range attacks. Chase. He can't run far. The air was violently rubbing against the aircraft body at high speeds. Garen was sitting in the cabin with an unchanged expression. He had experienced this state of being chased countless times and was already familiar with it. The machine can amplify a person's strength, but when there is no energy, it can only become a drag on the pilot. Among the 4 people he was chasing after, each one was an elite member of the inner court. If it was just an assassination in a normal state, he could still easily solve it. After all, the pilots were only a little stronger than ordinary people in their normal state. If there are only 3 people, he can kill them head on. After all, his consciousness is of high quality and his own fighting level far exceeds the 2. Some are easy to solve with tricks. But with the addition of a 4th person, Garen clearly felt that he was out of his depth as soon as he made contact. He quickly learned where his ultimate strength lies. At his current level, being able to defeat 3 top players at the same level without any resonance is already the top news. You must know that even Blackstar, the strongest young master in the Black Disk domain, once had the strongest combat power at this level, only 1 versus 2 people. This is not the ordinary family 5th level pilots from the outer courtyard. Those pilots have too many flaws in fighting. Let alone Garen, any of the same level or even 4th level pilots from the inner courtyard can kill the opponent. At this time, any one of the 4 people chasing him could easily kill at least 2 ordinary level 5 pilots outside. This is the difference between elites and non-elites. Like the red and white mecha that Garen once killed, if it had encountered the 4 people behind it in its heyday, it would have been killed in seconds. Together, these 4 people are equivalent to at least 5 red and white mechas. After all, the original Hungbei was also a quick product that was promoted quickly. In other words, it depends on the powerful performance of the mecha. It's really embarrassing. The mecha doesn't have enough energy, so I have to turn around and run away. Garen didn't mean to panic at all. Even if the mecha was gone, he wouldn't contract radiation sickness like other pilots outside. The worst case scenario is to escape from the cabin and hide alone. And even though they are being chased, the energy of the opponent's mecha is not unlimited. The round just now and the current flight chase have consumed at least half of the energy. Even if they brought spare energy blocks, they still had to have time to stop and replace them. Especially Linda, her energy source should be about the same as him, and she is definitely running out of energy. A sneer appeared on Garen's lips. The cardboard box was consumed in an instant, but that was not all he had. Garen's mecha fired its engine from time to time, accurately avoiding the long-range shots behind it, and at the same time, it was still slowing down to minimize the resistance of the wind, and its speed was actually 1 minute faster than the mecha behind it that was flying at full speed. From time to time, he would land on the ground, burrow into the dense forest of radiant stone pillars, and then quickly fly out from another unexpected angle, escaping again. This guy, Linda chased after her with her teeth almost broken. The machine was constantly issuing energy depletion warnings. Her energy was almost gone, but the black machine in front could still continue to fly forward. I heard that a powerful skilled pilot can minimize flight resistance and increase speed, thereby achieving higher speeds while reducing energy engine consumption. This ability mainly depends on the fine-tuning of consciousness. She has seen it in several masters in the organization, but she did not expect that Garen could actually have this skill. Even if you can reduce the cost of flying, my energy furnace is gone, and there are a few of them. I don't believe you can escape, she said bitterly, originally thinking that this mission was a sure thing, and she could easily get hundreds of millions in extra money. I didn't expect my opponent to be so tricky and cunning. Suddenly a murderous mobile phone master's curse came from the communicator. What are you doing? Heavy rain, Linda saw the mecha suddenly shaking violently. The high-energy gun has no battery, Heavy Rain said depressedly. If we hadn't expected that guy to be a level 5 pilot, we wouldn't have missed it so easily. I checked that guy's information. He is just an ordinary pilot who came from the outer courtyard. How could he have such a powerful and high-quality consciousness training method? Moreover, When he started school, he only had ordinary qualifications, but later he actually rushed to the top. The fifth level of this exercise method, if it is only the fourth level, it may be a genius that has not been detected before, or the fifth level of the eagle claw is not a big deal, but the fifth level of this high-quality exercise method. He is big 3, there are only a handful of people in the entire academy who have high-quality level 5 consciousness in their junior year. Everyone has a very powerful background behind him. He must have a big secret, another pilot said in a deep voice. The employer has sent people to the kid's home to see if they can find any clues. If they can't find any clues, they can also arrest people and threaten the kid. The secret that can quickly increase the level of consciousness, TASK, if it can be found and published, even the higher UPS of the blackboard won't let him go, right? The last pilot chuckled. Only a few of us know that this kid has level 5 special consciousness. Since the employer is not afraid of breaking the rules, we are afraid, Heavy Rain sneered. Perhaps the reason why the employer is so persistent in pursuing him is because he wants that boy's special training method. Several people exchanged words quickly, and soon followed Garen into a huge crack on the ground below. The crack was dark, and there were tooth-like thorns everywhere, intertwined with each other, and it looked like a giant crack in the earth. A wide, jagged mouth. Galleon slipped into the gap between the teeth in a few twists and disappeared. Oops. Chase. Linda was the first to react. She was also the only one among the few who had resonance. Although she was not driving her own unique mecha, her reaction speed was much faster. Several people quickly caught up with him, and the consciousness locked on Garen began to fade in and out. It was obvious that there was a lot of radiation interference in the crack. In the radiation belts, there is not just one kind of radiation, but many, many types of radiation. According to recorded data, there are more than 600 types of radiation known to scientists, and there are still some unknown ones that can be detected. There are at least thousands of them, and as for the more undetectable ones that can have powerful effects, the number is not known at all. This is the fundamental reason why people are so afraid of radiation belts. Several people hurriedly chased in, flying rapidly between the dark gaps. Some radioactive men wearing miniature mechas were actually found on some stone walls in the gap, and they seemed to be collecting something on the stone walls. There were several Flying Eagle-type mechas that seemed to be of the same standard floating next to this group of radioactive people, and shouts came from inside. This is the Noddington family's mining area. Outsiders, get out of here right away, a Flying Eagle mecha roared. 2 of the Flying Eagles floated up and tried to block the 4 black panel mechas. One is a level 3, the other is a level 2, and pilots of this level can be arranged in such a place. Obviously, this Noddington family is not simple. If it were an ordinary mining area, a first-level pilot would be able to sweep away those micro-mecha radiants. Not to mention level 2 and level 3. Court death. One of the black disc killers accelerated and passed by the 2 Flying Eagles. Tisk. Bang. The 2 Flying Eagles exploded into fireballs in just an instant, shattering into pieces and causing the radioactive people on the surrounding stone walls to wail, causing heavy casualties. The intense firelight illuminated the entire crack. Linda and the 4 of them went straight through without stopping, and continued to lock the gallon in front. Hold on. His energy will definitely be gone soon. 10 minutes at most, Linda shouted. A group of 4 people could only see the gallon mecha that seemed to be gliding between the cracks from a distance. Just as he was about to catch up, he made a few slippery turns to escape. Soon they encountered another group of Flying Eagle mechas. This time they seemed to have been notified and started fighting without saying a word. The ones who arrived were led by 2 high-end mechas, both level 5 pilots. Behind them are more than a dozen second-level mechas, with astonishing power. Obviously these 2 level 5 pilots should be the top people stationed in the nearby mining area. It can also be seen that the importance of this mining area is extraordinary. Otherwise, the treatment of a fifth-level pilot outside is simply not something that ordinary families can afford. No one has heard of the name Noddington family, and the four killers don't care. It would be okay if they were elite level 5 from the inner courtyard, but level 5 from outside. After a few easy fights, this group of mechas were easily wiped out by 4 people, with only a few seconds of delay. Violent explosions continued to sound from behind, and the 4 killers had already disappeared. What they couldn't understand was why these people didn't block the galleons flying in front of them, but instead specifically blocked them. After a group of 2 level 5 pilot generals were killed, the area suddenly became quiet, and no pilots dared to step forward to stop them. After all, outside, a 5th level pilot was already the top combat power of a family, and his death in such an instant was a huge loss to any family. But what the 4 killers didn't expect was that just a few seconds after they flew away, a 5th level veteran pilot, who was still breathing, struggled and vomited blood in the cabin and issued an emergency announcement. Emergency communication. In emergency communication, there is an unknown black disk mecha from outside. Please annihilate it if its strength is level 5 or above. After struggling to spit out the last word, the old pilot closed his eyes bitterly. The mecha that was pierced through the cabin fell into the bottomless abyss below. Even Garen, who had led the people here, did not expect that a huge storm would slowly turn due to the pursuit of their group. Distant white light in the disposal base. In the base that was constantly flying up and down, a large bright white mecha slowly lit up its eyes. A transparent light slowly appeared in front of him, and it clearly showed the scene of 4 black mechas killing the pilots of the Noddington family. Mies Heinenj mine. Someone actually dares to take advantage of my mine. It seems that not enough people have been killed. Waves of terrifying white auras slowly escaped from his body, turning into venomous snakes like ribbons. The entire huge base of nearly tens of square kilometers was completely enveloped by the dissipation of his consciousness. What do you want to do? Noddington. Your Majesty asked you to come here to garrison the base, not to kill people. A pleasant female voice came from the side. It was a bright red slender female mecha with a knife and a shield in one hand. What are you doing? He, I'm not that good for nothing. Dan Flo, who was beaten by the red whale so hard that he didn't even dare to leave the door, Noddington suddenly started up, and his body turned into a white light and shot out of the base, flying into the distance. It took a lot of effort to calm down. What bastard provoked this madman again? Damn it! Now we are in trouble. The red mecha was furious, turned around and flew towards the communication tower in another part of the base. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 894. Garen's body clung to the black mountain wall, giving people the illusion of being integrated into the cracked mountain wall. The consciousness all over his body was slowly moving like a chameleon to form complex threads. These threads seemed to be densely packed with small whirlpools on the surface of his body, which actually made the originally colorless consciousness faintly blend with the color of the surrounding mountain walls. As one body. The special color-changing concealment method of the eagle's talon is different from the eagle's talon in the outer courtyard. Instructor Fanduo's improved training method has 2 more powerful functions. One is the black wind, and the other is this color-changing concealment method. This is the biggest difference between Fanduo's Eagle Claw and the simplified version circulated in the outer courtyard. Whizzing. 4 black mechas flew past Garen with a bang, but they didn't notice the Garen at the corner at all. You can still faintly hear the angry and cursing sounds of Linda and others. Garen sat quietly in the cabin. At some point around the aircraft, there was a green light that looked like a firefly slowly floating around. Feeling that the pursuer had rushed to the front, Garen gently stretched out his hand and grabbed a light spot. A small green light bug crawled in his hand. It looked like a beetle or ladybug. Green light wings fluttered on its back. Easy to get rid of with a chuckle, Garen piloted the mecha and quietly lowered the engine sound and flew out of the crack. He knew that those people would definitely look back for someone if they found something was wrong. But before that, he had escaped safely. Slowly flying out of the crack canyon, there was silence all around. All the pilots from the Noddington family had evacuated or were annihilated. For these innocent people, Garen still felt a little guilty. After all, if he hadn't lured the enemy here first, these people wouldn't have died. He relied on the color-changing ability of concealing his aura to avoid the detection of these people, but instead allowed them to meet the 4 killers behind him. I will remember your contribution. Garen looked back at the base of a broken mountain wall and cliff, and flew straight towards the nearest supply point in the distance. No. Why can't the signal lock in front be detected at all? Linda stopped suddenly. The heavy rain on one side also became a little confused. Does that kid have any special concealment abilities? If I really have the ability to hide, what should I do if I am being hunted? Linda rubbed her eyebrows. She has been in the killer world for decades, and this is the first time she has encountered a newcomer who is so troublesome. If it were me, I would use my concealment ability to run to troublesome places, let other people's forces stop us, and at the same time find opportunities to hide and escape, a killer said in a low voice. Damn it! That kid must have ran outside. Chase him, Linda clenched her fists fiercely. The nearest supply point, he must have gone there to supply energy blocks. A killer didn't finish his words. Suddenly he raised his head and seemed to see something incredible. Linda and others looked at it slightly strangely at this time, but suddenly found that there was something wrong with the light on the surface of the killer's body. It seemed to be brighter than usual. Long. There were faint sounds of galloping horses in the sky, and a dazzling red-yellow stream of light slowly fell from a distance and flew in the direction of the 4 of them. The meteor broke through the sound barrier and brought up a long yellow tail smoke. The dazzling light shone on the 4 aircraft bodies, faintly reflecting the shiny luster of metal. What is that? Rainstorm always felt a strange feeling in his heart. Have no idea. What? That's a heritage pilot. Run away. Linda suddenly lost her voice, turned around and ran away without hesitation. The other 3 aircraft were just stunned for a moment, and then immediately turned around and ran away. The aircraft completely ignored the energy consumption and turned to maximum injection. 4 blue flames formed like wings behind the machine body. Great light lock, a faintly violent voice sounded in the sky. Several slender chains as white as jade suddenly shot out from the red-yellow meteor. Their length was comparable to that of a laser cannon, and they caught up with the 4 killer armors in front of them in just a few seconds. With a swish, they tied up several people. The consciousness force fields on 3 of the 4 people actually became tighter and tighter under the chains, as if the more they struggled, the more they shrank. What's this? Linda was startled and quickly took out a ball of something that looked like green slime, grabbed it in her hand and gave it a firm squeeze. With a pop, the mucus exploded and turned into a ball of green mist. There is a human face in the green mist slowly opening its eyes. At the same time, layers of green mist appeared around her mecha. A 10-meter diameter human face in the middle slowly opened its eyes and stared gently at the bright mecha behind her. 2 rays of green light shot out suddenly, hitting the great light mecha at a speed exceeding that of the light beam. Paralyzing light? He's actually the disciple of Engis the man-bear. Ha 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 ha. It really took no effort at all. A harsh laugh erupted from the great light mecha. Wait until I catch you. I want to settle the score with Ren Xiong. He hurt my brother last time, and I'm just trying to get revenge on him. The green light only stopped his time for a moment. The big bright mecha dived down, and when the chain was retracted, it immediately pulled the 4 mechas back towards themselves at the same time. The 4 of them tried all kinds of methods, but they couldn't get the chains that tied them up. The chains seemed to be illusory and insubstantial, but they could tightly bind the body and drag it back. As the distance got closer, the faces of the 4 people in the cabin became paler. It's over. Linda's heart felt cold. Boom. The last thing she saw was countless white torrents of light rushing toward her. On the black plain in the distance, Garen looked up and watched the red-yellow meteor piercing the sky and falling into the deep, dark crack. There was a faint vibration in my heart, and the heavy oppressive feeling that seemed to come from the depths of my consciousness passed by. Here comes the master. His heart sank. If he was still confident of getting rid of the 4 people before, then this person now has far surpassed his current level. He must be a master with his own unique mecha. Once a person, when a master has his own unique mecha, not to mention the trouble of resonance skills, it is also very troublesome for the unique mecha to have many functions that completely surpass the general standard mecha. At least the method he used just now to hide himself from the enemy may not be applicable in the opponent's hands. Who knows what high-level detection equipment is loaded on the exclusive mecha? I just don't know what happened to Linda's people. It seems that they are the masters of the Noddington family. Garen gloated twice and continued flying towards the nearest supply point in a good mood. After flying forward for about 10 minutes, the faint roar of explosions behind me gradually disappeared and became inaudible. There were desolate radioactive plains everywhere around me. Occasionally, I could see puddles of yellow liquid, with water inside them constantly. Yellow acid mist evaporates, and the edges are covered with corpse shells of white bones and insects. Several dirty, fluffy-looking giant gray rats were slowly crawling around the edge of the puddle. Each one of them was over a meter long. There are endless grasslands everywhere in front, back, left and right, and the mecha's energy is only 2% left. In a few minutes it may come to a complete stop. Garen had already made plans to move forward on foot wearing a radiation suit. We didn't bring much water or food, and the main luggage was left with Enda, the leader of the team. After continuing to fly for a while, the mecha still had its last moment of power left. Garen looked at nothing before and after, but looked at the map. It was still 10 minutes away from the nearest supply point, a small village of radiation people, and the energy at this scale was simply not enough to reach there. Mechas are still very powerful as independent combat weapons, but they are far less durable than warships in terms of continuous navigation. This is why many mechas require warships to transport them. No matter how powerful the energy furnace of a mecha is, it is still far less durable than a battleship. After all, the main design of battleships is transportation and navigation. In this era, battles mainly rely on small fighter jets and mechas. There may be individual mecha energy furnaces that are very durable, but at least a higher level pilot can control them. An overly powerful mecha and an unmatched pilot will cause the vibrations generated when the mecha moves to put an excessive burden on the pilot. The result is that either the pilot cannot move, or the pilot's body is overloaded. Heavy damage. Click. Galen opened the cabin isolation room, walked out slowly wearing a black radiation suit, jumped lightly, and landed firmly on the grassland ground. He was also holding a short cane in his hand, which was the Zion cane he carried with him. The cabin behind him slowly closed, and the energy light in the eyes of the heavy machine slowly dimmed, completely shutting down energy consumption. Garen looked around and didn't see any human beings. The radiation belt after leaving the domain is the largest area of this planet. Compared with the former Earth, the size of this planet is much larger. Mecha materials must be found as soon as possible. After recalling the direction of the nearest supply point, Garen trotted towards that direction. Before he could run a few steps, several shit-yellow earthworm-like bugs shot up from the ground and flew towards his face. Each of these earthworms had one bloody eye and spider-like mouth parts, which were constantly opening and closing. It gives people a creepy feeling. Garen flicked his fingers and flicked away the earthworms continuously. The strong finger force was unable to do any harm to these bugs. A few bugs actually landed on the ground and then flicked their tails again and started flying again. Snort. Garen snorted coldly, and suddenly opened a dark blue jagged mouth in the palm of his left hand. Countless blue tentacles swarmed out, grabbed 2 earthworms and pulled them into the mouth, chewing them with a clicking sound. Swallowed it in pieces. The horror of the peacock kung fu finally began to slowly emerge, and the devouring ability finally showed its power through the slow transformation. A stream of strange radiation energy poured into the body from the palm of the eaten earthworm. Under the control of Garen's will, it stopped at the left shoulder and condensed into a small seed. That was the prototype of the twisted seed. The big mouth opened in the palm of his hand was completely torn together with the radiation protection suit. Garen simply tore a large gash in the palm of his left hand. Just as he was about to appreciate the difference in radiation energy, his expression suddenly changed and he quickly ran towards the plane in the distance. Not long after he left, a white mecha slowly emerged behind the black body. Several green diamond-shaped crystals on its body formed an obvious huge network of green light. These lights clearly formed the word light in common language. It was the great bright mecha in the white light. He ran pretty fast. Noddington glanced around with cold eyes. But it will cause people to destroy and kill 2 of my 5th level subordinates. If I let you escape so easily, wouldn't it make me, Noddington, too incompetent? He sneered, raised the left arm of the machine body, and the armor under the forearm it opened with a click, revealing a tube of dark green test tube liquid inside, which was still bubbling. He grabbed the test tube with his other hand and pulled it out hard, then took out the test tube and gently threw it forward. With a banging sound, the green liquid test tube suddenly exploded into a ball of green mist. Slowly spread out and spread into the surrounding environment. Soon a clear trail of footprints appeared on the grassland, all marked with green fluorescent lights, and they continued to extend forward. It turned out to be the direction Galen left from earlier. This direction. Noddington chuckled and flew in the direction of the green footsteps.